Shalom, shalom, everybody. Welcome, welcome to the eternal and ancestral homeland of the Jewish people. I hope you are all doing well. So it's as if Corona isn't enough. It's unbelievable what is taking place in the land of Israel today. Again, you would think Corona would be the headline. And in a sense, the coronavirus is the headline, and how the government is doing or isn't doing enough, etc. What our situation is, the problems with the economy of millions of people being out of work and many losing their jobs. You would think that would be the central issue. And to many who watch the news or read the news, they might think that is the central issue, but it's not. The undercurrent of everything, the undercurrent of all of the reporting against Netanyahu and the government dealing with the corona, the undercurrent of everything dealing with the elections, coalition talks for a government. It has nothing to do with corona. It has nothing to do with allowing the state of Israel to finally having a governing majority government. It has everything to do with what kind of country is Israel and what kind of country do we want Israel to be. It's that simple. I have gone over this time after time, and it is not enough. This is a critical issue that everyone has to hear. The judicial overreach of the justice system in Israel, where it's the Supreme Court that gets most of the attention in their overreach, but it is also the system, the attorney generals of the different offices, the different positions, the state prosecutor, who at the same time being a prosecutor, who's also supposed to be a defender of government officials. There is a big mishkababble in the justice system, but there is one constant: the total overreach and step-by-step takeover and coup of the Israeli government, basically making the Israeli government impotent, and that the only ones who are responsible in the end for making those laws are the Supreme Court, not by actually making the laws, but by making the government, nullifying government laws or making the government change laws already made, and different things. All right, so I've spoken about this before. What does this have to do right now? What's going on? So first, let's bring it in connection to what's going on with the coronavirus. I don't know how many of you have seen this. It's been headline news in Israel, but let me put a video on for all of you to see. But protest of thousands of people in the streets of Tel Aviv. Now you're going to ask me, wait, Avi, why are there protests of thousands of people allowed? Right, allowed according to law. Why are thousands of people allowed to protest in the streets of Tel Aviv? At the same time, okay, and this is until yesterday, the same time before yesterday, it was forbidden to go outside at all except to walk 100 meters or to go to someplace essential. Either you had an essential job or you're going shopping or to a pharmacy, right? And even religious Jews were forbidden to go to prayer services, right? Even under 10 people, it was forbidden. Even under 10 people, even to have space, that was forbidden, right? No public prayer. We're a Jewish country, a large religious traditional population that pray, that go to synagogue. That was forbidden, right? You couldn't be a group of 10 men together with social distancing. That was forbidden until yesterday, okay? Yet, at the same time, thousands of people in Tel Aviv were allowed to congregate and protest. Let's watch the video. Okay, let's go to the video just so you can see what we're talking about here. All right, you can see this is a protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in support of, these are all the leftists protesting against Netanyahu. You see social distancing by most people. Not everybody, but they're supposed to be social distancing. Right, let people go. A Bibi Netanyahu is an anti-Bibi rally.
For everything and anything that is essential to the future of this country and our children, the Israeli democracy, and the way this government is in its sloppiness is handling the corona crisis.
Okay, so basically what are we seeing? We're seeing that in the name of the law, because this is permitted, right? This is permitted. Thousands of people are allowed to protest. 10 men, again, until yesterday, 10 men are forbidden to pray with social distancing, but thousands of people can go protest. All right, now, that's the law. Okay, that's the law. According to law, even with this social distancing, people can get together and protest, even thousands of people. Now, if you don't see the hypocrisy there, then I don't know what, then you need glasses. All right, you definitely need glasses. And there we saw Yair Lapid, the leader of the Yesh Atid party. Now, look at this other interview he did at another protest. Okay, another protest against the government, against Bibi. Here we go. There is Yair Lapid. Does anyone see social distancing? Any social distancing for Yair Lapid? All right, any social distancing by someone who wants to be prime minister? Any social distancing there, right? This is the same man, Yair Lapid, who just 2 weeks ago called for the Minister of Health to resign because he allegedly didn't follow the rules of social distancing, which in the end, information came out that he did follow the rules of social distancing. But that's Yair Lapid. Yair Lapid, on the one hand, called for the Minister of Health to resign because he didn't follow social distancing. And here's Yair Lapid. Yair Lapid, is he following social distancing? No social distancing at a rally against Bibi Netanyahu and the Israeli government. This is the same Yair Lapid where after the government gave the guidelines for social distancing, right, and to stay inside, he called for people to go to the streets and protest. That's what Yair Lapid called for at the time, right? So I made a video at the time calling him out. He was endangering people's lives and health by going against government guidelines and telling people to go to the streets and protest. All right, so that is the situation. Now let's go to what people who I believe are correct, right? Here you're saying, according to the law, people are allowed to protest against the government, even if they're not practicing social distancing. But yeah, at least until yesterday, even Jews in a Jewish country were forbidden to pray, even if we would have had social distancing. Well, honestly, this isn't about the issue of prayer versus that. This is an issue of hypocrisy. Because personally, I'm still staying at home, even though yesterday a new rule, a new guideline, is that now prayer is allowed for up to 19 people in a public place where they practice social distancing. Okay, so that's allowed. But I'm not even going out to prayer because I still have to come in contact once in a while. Not in contact, but I still do deliveries and stuff to my parents, practicing social distancing. If you saw that video, but I'm still not going to public prayers, even with social distancing. And there are plenty of people who are still not going there. We're waiting until things are safer. So this isn't an issue about anti-religious. This is an issue about hypocrisy. Okay? Issue about hypocrisy. Now, wait a second. Now let's go to people who are really calling out what's going on today in the situation. Let's go to this video. Here we go. Let's share again this next video. Okay, this is in Hebrew.
שקורה כאן עכשיו זה הניסיון של ההשתלטות של בית המשפט העליון על השלטון במדינה.
All right, this is a Chaver Knesset, a parliamentarian, who had just said the issue today, he said this in Israel's parliament, in the Knesset. The issue today is the Supreme Court taking over the Israeli government. That is exactly what this parliamentarian is bringing up in parliament. That the issue today is the takeover of Israeli government by the Supreme Court, by the justice system. Let's go back. Okay, where did it go? Here we go.
אנשים הולכים לקלפי ומשוכנעים שהם בוחרים את הנציגים שלהם שיחליטו איך המדינה הזאת נראית, אבל זה לא המצב. אתם יודעים למה זה לא המצב? כי כבוד נשיא העליון בדימוס, אהרון ברק וחבריו, חושבים אחרת, והנה אני אקריא לכם מה הוא אומר. תקשיבו טוב. כמשפטנים, אנחנו הארכיטקטים של השינוי החברתי.
Okay, so this parliamentarian, he basically said, Israelis think that we go to I'm just getting the right screen back, that we go to the polls, right? That we go to the polls thinking that we're electing our representatives who will run the country and make the decisions about the direction of the country. And this is a parliamentarian saying this in parliament, and he's not the only one, and this is something I've been saying for years. He goes, no, and that's wrong. The people elect representatives, but yet you have the retired Supreme Court Justice Aaron Barak and all of his cadre of justice professionals and judges and attorney generals who for years are basically running the country, not allowing the representatives of the people to decide on the direction of the country. All right, and he brought a quote from Aaron Barak himself, where he said, we, the judges, are the ones who have the skills to be the architects of the state of this country. All right, and that's exactly what they've been doing all these years. They have been deciding according to their value system how Israel should look, whether it's what the army is allowed to do and not allowed to do in terms of dealing with terrorists and our enemies, whether it's regard to laws on how to deal with the illegal migrants from Africa. The Supreme Court year after year nullifies the laws that the government passes. The government has tried to solve this problem. We have tens of thousands of illegal migrants in this country that they're basically, they're in limbo because the Supreme Court has not allowed the government to solve the solution. Every time the government came up with a law, people went to court saying they didn't like it, and the Supreme Court nullified it, say, do it again. Same thing in terms of the ultra-Orthodox. The government has passed time after time different bills dealing with the draft of ultra-Orthodox, and it was always petitioned to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court always nullified the laws. The reason we went to election a year ago is because the Supreme Court gave a deadline. Who the heck gives the power to the Supreme Court to give a deadline to Parliament to make a law? They have no such power, yet they have taken that power. And it's because of that deadline, the government fell because it wasn't able to pass that law. And we went to elections that have continued until this day. That's what this is all about. It's about whether the government is controlled by the Supreme Court and the justice system, or whether we have a balance of power between the three powers of government, the legislative, the executive, and judicial. Each one is independent with checks and balances in order that there be a balance of power in a democracy. That is the ultimate struggle of what's going on in Israel today. And the ultimate question, as I titled this segment, is Israel a Jewish democratic state or a democratic Jewish state? And it's a huge difference. Because there are those people who say, we don't care whether Israel's a Jewish state or not. It's a democracy. Israel's a democracy, and it's the democratic rules that rule. So there are Jews who live here. So there's a Jewish aspect to this democratic state of Israel. That is the line of thinking who support the Supreme Court taking over control of government, because they don't want a majority of the Jewish people in Israel who believe that Israel is a Jewish state run by a democratic system. Democracy is a system of rule. It is not the definition of a state. It is a system of rule. It is the best of any and all other sorts of rules that allow people to have a say and allow for equality. But I forgot who the philosopher who says that it's actually the best of all the evils of forms of government. Meaning, democracy isn't perfect, but it's a system. It's a system of rule. Israel is a Jewish state that has a democratic system. And that democratic system is supposed to allow Israel to be a democracy, but yet to be a Jewish state. And yet you have these people that want Israel not to be a strong Jewish state, but Israel is a democracy. It just happens to have a majority of Jews. So they think it's a Jewish democratic state. And that's why they want the Supreme Court and the justice system to overtake and usurp all the powers of the government, because they don't want the majority of Jews in this country who vote right to actually get policies from a right-wing government. Again, my biggest complaint, and you've seen me go publicly support Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and you've seen me be very critical of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We've had him now for Prime Minister for a long time. And even though he's been the leader of right-wing governments, he has never allowed Israel to rule as right-wing government. We always vote right and we get left, because there have always been parties in the coalition or coalition politics, or Bibi himself not trying to make too many waves, that have stopped Israel from making the necessary changes to allow the right to vote on the laws and policies that we follow as a right-wing government. Forget security, forget illegal migrants. You know that one of the biggest issues in Israel, the economy. The economy is still pressured by labor unions. Labor unions run this economy. Thank God the high-tech sector is the most growth industry of Israel today. You know why? Because it came about after the labor unions were already existed for all the other industries, and there's no labor union in the high-tech industry. So that is why it is the largest economic growth engine in Israel. All the other sectors of Israel have strong labor unions that stop necessary economic changes to industries, to budgets. The pensions of government employees, of high-level government employees and high-level IDF retired officers is exorbitant. And it's the labor unions that they don't look after the Joe Schmo workers at the bottom. They're looking after the huge pension plans and the huge salaries of all the middle and top level people in their unions in the different sectors, textile sector, public transportation sector, railroad sector, and the government is never able to trim the fat of all the excess money that is wasted in those industries because of the labor unions. And right now, Benny Gantz represents the labor unions. The two people he wants to put in place in economic roles in a unity government are two ex-labor union chiefs. That they don't care about the Israeli economy. They care about the labor unions and the big fat pension checks and salaries that everyone gets there. And they are the problem of why the Israeli economy has not been able to be better. Thank God for the high-tech sector that was not under the control of the labor unions. That's just one example of all this. But again, the bottom line is Israel a Jewish state with a democratic system, or is Israel just a democratic state that happens to have a majority of Jews? And Benny Gantz represents the direction of Israel being run by the justice system, and Israel being a democratic state, but not focusing on the Jewish aspect. And Netanyahu and the right wing are those that believe Israel is a Jewish state with a democratic system that needs a strong, independent justice system with the checks and balances of the other two legs of government, the legislative and the executive. That is the ultimate issue behind everything going on today. Everything, all issues, all arguments that anyone who supports the justice system overtaking and usurping the powers of the executive and the legislative, they're basically saying, we don't care about the will of the people. We don't care about the vote of the people. We don't care that this is a Jewish state. We want the judges and the attorney generals to run this country. Okay, that's the problem. And that is the main issue that we're facing today. And one of the issues that are stopping the national unity talks, because Gantz wants to have control of the justice system and the choosing of the judges, and Netanyahu does not, because the past two justice ministers have tried to bring about changes that would allow for more conservative judges to come up through the system to balance out the left-wing, anti-Jewish state, pro-justice system takeover of the Israeli politic, of Israeli governments. And the past two justice ministers have been trying to make changes slowly. And Benny Gantz, if he gets full control over the justice system and the choosing of the judges, not only would he put a stop to that, he would roll all those changes back, probably making the situation even worse, because little by little, as we just saw a few weeks ago, when the Supreme Court ruled that the Knesset speaker who resigned had to be overcome, right? The Knesset speaker basically was able to resign. And by resigning, he said, I don't have to enforce the high court's ruling of a vote that needed to take place. Again, where's the Supreme Court had an overreach. It's forcing a vote in the parliament. You were talking about a filibuster in the Knesset. Think of it like this. The Congress is having a filibuster, and then some of the parliamentarians run to the Supreme Court in Washington and say, force the vote, make them stop that filibuster. That's what happened here in Israel. The Supreme Court forced the filibuster, a legal, L-E-G-A-L, a legal filibuster. The Supreme Court forced to stop and force a vote. That is a total overreach by the Supreme Court, by the justice system, and that is going to get even worse if Benny Gantz is allowed, and the left are allowed to take over and fully control the justice system and the choosing of the judges. That's what it's about, folks. And that's why those of us who, while we want a government, and I believe we're going to have a government, whether it's going to be with the Gantz and blue and white, or whether it's going to be 61 with Hauser and Hendel, we'll see. We're going to have a government. We're not going to go to fourth elections, probably going to go to the last minute. But this is what it's about. It's about, are we going to allow this Gantz mentality that he represents, not even him, he's a puppet, but that mentality of the justice system and Supreme Court taking over all the powers of the legislative and executive? Or are we going to have a government that does not allow that to happen? And it has to do with, are we a Jewish country that has a democratic system that we have to follow democracy, right? And follow rule of law, of course. Or are we a democratic country and we just happen to have a majority of Jews? That's what it's about, folks. Thanks for watching. If you think this information is important, please share with everyone. Signing off from the eternal and ancestral homelands of the Jewish people. And again, I'm just going to sign off by saying I'm optimistic. In the end, we're going to win. What do I mean we're going to win? Those of us who believe Israel is a Jewish state, we will overcome all these challenges. We're home, and there are unfortunately plenty, even though they're a minority, but plenty of Jews in Israel who prefer Israel not to be a strong Jewish state. But it's going to happen. It's going to happen. We're going in the right direction. We have challenges, and that's okay. That's part of what happens. But please, God, we're gonna overcome this, and it's not going to be overcome today, tomorrow, next week, next year. But this is the struggle that's taking place day in, day out in Israel, and other countries are experiencing similar things, just on a different level, and not about the Jewish identity of their countries, but yes, the religious, moral value fabric of their countries that is being attacked by the left that talks about the rule of law, but in a sense are trampling on the rights of most of those in their countries by destroying the moral fabric with the religious aspect to it of those societies. And again, we're talking about Western countries. Out of here, folks. Shalom from the eternal and ancestral homeland, Jewish people. Thanks for watching.